Hello there. So cutting the cord, right, aka dropping your cable and or satellite TV service can save you a ton of money. And the best part is you can still get your regular TV channels for free in HD. And all you have to do is maybe buy a couple of things, maybe not, it depends. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're talking about how to get free HD over the air. Sorry, just trying to take that down. Free HD over the air in your house on your TV with little or no cost. Let's get the party started, shall we? Okay, so not everybody went for the full ride, but a lot of us started out with old school TV, right? You didn't pay for it. It was over the air. You had a big antenna on the roof of wherever you were living, or maybe just a really big one on your TV. And sometimes it was a constant battle of, having to adjust things in order to get a good picture, but it worked. We had our TV, we had our however many channels, 5 or 7, depending on where you were. And that was it. And then things started to change. Then we got cable and everybody wanted cable. And then you had, back in the day, in the very beginning, it was a wired remote that you would string across the room, or your parents would use us kids as the remote to go and change the cable channels, right? And then we started to get movies, and then the pay thing, and then satellite came, and so then we all ended up with dishes on our roof, and we were getting things that way, and it's just been rolling and rolling and rolling. And over time, we went from getting TV for free to paying a lot of money and not always getting what we wanted out of that, right? Certainly not having choices, right? You got what you got with what you bought. Maybe you could add on things like movie channels or sports channels, that kind of thing, but the basic package was whatever it was, and that's what you got. Well, everything old is new again. You can now get HD quality TV over the air, and it doesn't cost anything, except maybe you might need to buy an antenna, depending on whether or not you currently have an antenna that you're connected to, usually on the roof of the building, or you can go ahead and buy one, and there's a variety there. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the first thing to do is to try, if you've got an antenna, try plugging it in and see what it goes. Now, that may not be as simple as it sounds, because your TV may need an adapter of some sort in order to connect, depending on how your antenna was wired, all that kind of good stuff. But the reality is you can get your basic TV over the air. Now, what am I talking about, right? This may not be terminology you're familiar with. So over the air refers to television broadcasting over basically radio waves, right? From the television stations. Basically what they do, the television stations are usually sending it some sort of master antenna, and then that's sending it out across the area. A few years ago, now I'm talking about the US here, you folks in the other parts of the universe, this will adjust a little bit for you. You'll have to do some local research. But here a couple years ago, well, more than a couple now, it became law that the old analog version of TV over the air was sunsetted, and they had to start providing HD. There was the usual amount of chaos and concern around that, but we have it now. And in the beginning, if you wanted to do it and you didn't have a fancy TV yet, you needed to get a converter. And for a moment in time, that converter was available for free from the government. That's how I got mine, because, however, that is over. So if you still are using a TV that is not, digital, smart, all the little buzzwords around that, then you might still need to go ahead and get one of these. They're not super expensive. You can find them in lots and lots of places, including places like eBay and flea markets and stuff like that, because a lot of people who needed these in the beginning have now upgraded their TVs. So there is that option too. So basically this means that, it's over our heads, right? It's floating around in the ether, and you, as a blanket statement, you can get free TV by just having an antenna and having it pointed in the right direction, if it's not a multi-directional one, and bringing the signal in. Now, of course, just like back in the olden days, it's never quite that simple, because even then it was a little sketchy, and there's still the issues around, in bad weather you can lose a signal, if the wind moves your antenna you could lose your signal. All those kinds of things still apply to this type of TV. But you can get, your ABC, CBS, all that kind of stuff, all the basic channels on that, plus more. because now that they're doing it in a digital format, it's not just 2, 4, 5, 7, whatever. They can now send out multiple streams at the same time. So it's 2 and then 2.1 and 2.2 and 2. So you have more options. Now let's just get this out there, okay? This is not going to be maybe the latest greatest television, right? It's a lot of the content is old stuff being repurposed. Now that said, you do still have new stuff. Like, if you're a Grey's Anatomy fan, that's, still broadcast on Thursday, like the regular, the news, sports events, all that kind of stuff. But when you get to those sub channels, a lot of that is like old TV. Now, personally, I'm enjoying that because it's a nice trip down memory lane. And it's nice background noise when I'm working from home kind of thing, because it's stuff like I don't really need to listen to because I probably could recite half of the dialogue myself. But just let's just keep the expectation levels where they are. There's obviously no, HBO this way. There's no Amazon Prime stuff. There's no Netflix over the air. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about more traditional type television broadcasts from your local television stations. That said, there's more content and variety than you might expect. So I wouldn't dismiss it out of hand if you're looking to save some money, or if you're just curious, or if you're just like, oh, it's free, let me give it a try. So it is over the air is generally how it's referred to. A lot of times you'll see it referenced as OTA, right? The initials. You'll also hear things like broadcast television, terrestrial television, that type of thing. But the big difference is it's HD quality, and because of the sub-channels, you get more channels out of it. So let me see, did I cover all that? Yeah, so news, nationally televised sports, primetime TV, ABC, Fox, NBC, that kind of stuff. So that's what we're talking about here. That's where we're pointing, and it's really not hard, and it's pretty much, well, we'll get into that in a minute. We'll get into that in a minute. But I do want to mention, for the folks who are out there, if you're creating any kind of content, and we all have those days where you hit the wall, and you just can't come up with the idea, but you need to post something. I created an ebook for myself. It's 130 content ideas, not tech specific. You are welcome to a copy for free. So just go to yourtechcoach.net/content ideas, no spaces. And you can download a PDF. What I do is I printed it out. I know, old school, you don't have to. But I print it out, and I shuffle the pages, I lay them out, close my eyes, and literally point, and that becomes my topic. It takes all of the stress out of it. It takes all the decision-making out of it. It's like, okay, this is what I'm writing about. Okay, fine. And that generally is enough to get it going. So I've made it available for free. Go make use of it. Don't be shy. It's easy enough. Okay, so this is a interesting topic for a lot of people, and you may be curious about whether or not it's going to work for you. Like all things in life, the answer is maybe. Maybe, probably, even. I would go as far as that. So the quality of the signal, the number of channels you could possibly get, are 100% determined by how close you are to a transmission tower, or multiple. So now, like, I live in New Jersey, so I'm actually pretty lucky because I can get the New York and the Philly signals because I'm kind of in the overlap area. Not everybody's that lucky, but if you're in an area that is fairly close to a large broadcast area, the odds are pretty good. It's certainly worth giving it a try. But what is available specifically in your area will vary. And I'm going to show you a way that you can go and test, to check that out, to see whether or not this is even worth your time before you get there. The distance you are from the tower is number one, right? The closer you are, the better. Now, there are other factors because it is an over-the-air kind of thing, right? It's radio waves bouncing. And so any kind of obstacle between you, or your antenna technically, and the transmission tower are going to have an effect, right? So we're talking mountains, hills, buildings, walls, doors, people walking in front of the antenna can cause havoc. So this is very much a location kind of a thing. But in general, the people that I have walked through this process have had much more success than failure. So we'll take that for what it's worth, right? Okay. Let me scroll down. So yes, Tyler is finding this interesting. That's good. I'm glad. It is pretty cool, and it's funny to me, being somebody who remembers the old days of over-the-air television and the fuzzy, grainy picture kind of thing with the smaller screens. I mean, there were no 52-inch screens in my house back in the day, but yeah, it is cool, and it's kind of like magic when it works, right? When I got mine several years ago. Well, probably been doing this right from the beginning, right? Because I did get the converter box. When I was able to plug it in and do it, it was really kind of cool. And like I said, I'm really enjoying the old shows. They're highly amusing for me. I'm getting a kick out of it for sure. Paul, hello. How are you? So your black and white TV had rabbit ears when you grew up. Yes. See, I remember the rabbit ears. We didn't have rabbit ears. My grandparents did. My dad was a geek, so we had a slightly more upscale, and he'd gotten a pretty strong antenna and got all the special wiring. He was quite the electronics geek too, so he was a nerd back in the day before that was a thing, and then he was really good at that. So we for that time period, we had a pretty good setup. But yes, I remember, the rabbit ears. I also remember being the remote control, go change the channel. And that was true. Don't miss TV, because there was no chance of catching it after the fact, right? If you missed a show at that point, you missed it, right? If there was some breakout event, now later on, VCRs came and all that, and DVRs and that kind of thing down the road. But in the beginning, if you missed it, that would, at that point in time, that could have been a chance that could have meant that you didn't ever get to see it again. You weren't going to get another chance. Some shows did go into reruns, but not all. And this is, okay, we're going a little off topic here, but for my fellow Whovians out there, that's why we don't have all of the original Doctor Who's, because the BBC reused those tapes because it was one and done. They had no inclination to save anything because they had no market to make use of it, and tape was expensive, so they kept reusing it. So that's why there's gaps in what's available to us, because they didn't save it. Most of the stuff that got saved was actually tapes that got sent out to local TV stations to send out that didn't bother to send it back, and so they just sat in a room someplace for years and years, and that's why the quality's kind of meh. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. Like, I can go Doctor Who for hours, and I won't do that to you now. So let's talk about why we're here. So the very first thing that you need is, well, you need a TV. And then you need to be close to a transmission tower. And then you need an antenna. Now, there's really not anything known as like a digital antenna or a high-def antenna, right? An antenna is an antenna. So it could be that old school antenna that might be sitting on your roof that's not connected to anything right now could still work. Definitely, that is the place I would suggest trying, because it may mean that you don't have to spend a dime, right? You may already be good to go, as long as your television is already, high def, which the odds are pretty good. But again, if you're not, there are converters available. I think most of them are about $25, $30. So that's pretty simple. So you do need an antenna, and once you get it in, then like a newer TV will just be able to handle the high def as they get it. And then the older ones, you'll just need that little converter. So that's the one case where you might need to spend an extra buck. If your existing antenna does not work, right? You could even try the rabbit ears, to be honest. If you've still got a set of rabbit ears sitting around, I would give it a try. Especially if you're close to a metropolitan area, it's worth a shot. You're probably not going to get everything you possibly can, but you'll probably get a fair amount. The other thing is you're going to need to, you're probably going to want to do a little research up front. So let me show you. Let me switch over here. And the links are all in the descriptions for what I'm talking about. So you can go to a site like this. There's a lot of them out there. I just went to the FCC one just because, that's pretty agnostic. And then you put in your location and hit go. And just out of time, I just did it already. So you put in your zip code, and then it's going to show you what you should be able to get in the best case scenario, right? So again, all the things we talked about, mountains, weather, buildings, all that kind of stuff will impact it, but it will show you this. Now, I will say, like, if you look at this list, there's maybe a couple dozen, right? When I do it for mine, I get 15 stations listed. However, my connection actually gets me anywhere between 50 and 60, depending on the time of year. So this I would call like your basic connectivity options, right? Your basic TV channel options. You will probably get more as long as you are not too far from the main source of your signal. hope if that doesn't make sense, let me know and I'll try to explain it again. But this is just sort of going to give you a general feel for, is it worth your effort, right? So if you come in here and you put in your zip code and it says, yeah, no, not going to happen, that doesn't mean that you can't get anything. It could just mean that it would take a little extra work. You might need a better antenna, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you may have to do a lot more positioning in order to get it right. But like this kind of a thing basically means that if you get an antenna or you have one and you connect it, the odds are pretty good you're going to get some of these at least. So that's definitely a good starting point to just kind of set your expectations and get a feel for what's available. Again, like somebody like me who is in an area where it overlaps, it's actually a good and bad thing because the signals also compete with each other. So in my case, I don't care because I'm really not like, I just generally want some background noise and maybe, a little decompressed time before bed. So I'm not like super anxious to have certain things. Like I generally can find something that entertains me. Also, by the way, a lot of these also offer music channels, kind of like what we got with the cable and the satellite. So some of the channels, and those wouldn't show up on this kind of a chart, but some of them are just music channels. People I know who are more hardcore about, like I have a friend who's very into all of this because he wants to get all the local sports and he lives in this area too. So he actually can get a fair amount by bouncing between the two. So what he's done is, again, he's hardcore, but he set himself up with a switcher that he built because he's got one antenna position to get the Philadelphia stuff and one antenna position to get just New York stuff. And that way he can flip back and forth depending on basically what sports he wants to watch. So again, depending on your level of interest and the amount of work you want to put into this, if you're lucky enough to live in an area like I do where there's some overlap, you can get some different options for yourself. Now, so we talked about distance, and that's pretty much the starting point for what you're going to get. And we talked about the fact you can use your existing antenna. Now, you can also buy antennas, and you don't have to get an antenna that goes on your roof. Rule of thumb is that an outdoor antenna is going to get you more and better connections. That said, you don't have to do that if you don't want to climb on the roof. I certainly don't. Some people, instead of putting it on the roof, they'll install a pole and put the antenna on that. Like a lot of people have done that with their satellite dishes as well. You'll need to check with your local rules and regulations about that. And then you're also going to want to like install that properly, maybe cement on the pole, all that kind of stuff. You want to do it safely. I didn't want to deal with any of that. So what I got, I'll show you exactly what I got. I got this one. This is an indoor one. And literally what I did, part of this process is you have to find the right spot. And so I tried a bunch of different spots. And what I did was I put it on my second floor. My TV's on the first floor. And I just ran the antenna down the stairs and around the half wall to where the TV is. It's like $60. This is a 60-mile range. So this is what if you're going to look for an antenna, if you're going to buy one, you're going to want to look for ones that have, there's different ranges. There's 60, there's 50, there's 100, there's 200. I don't know what the current max is. But so you're going to want to look at that. But this is very, very thin. It's got a dark and a light side for people who care about, the aesthetics. Obviously, I don't, since I have wires strung everywhere. And then, you can go ahead and install it. Now, I went with this because this is what is called an amplified. So this actually not only plugs into the TV and functions as an antenna, but it plugs into power. The benefit of that is it gives that antenna a little more boost so that it can get more signal. So you can get it either with this, you can either get the amplified model or you can get one that isn't amplified. And again, that's totally up to you and where you live and what your needs are and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just kind of pointing out the things to watch for. And this is what we're talking about. So this is a one-time cost. So instead of having to pay $250 a month to your cable or satellite provider, you spend $60 once and you give it a try. And again, if you're doing it from Amazon or someplace like that, and you can't get it to work, save the box, package it up, and then return it. And then, no harm, no foul. They're all cool about that. You can go ahead and check that. They've got a wide variety of stuff. And like I said, all these links are in my, in the descriptions. I got to go back and put that. I don't think I put the note about it being affiliate. A lot of them are affiliate links, but not all. Obviously, the FCC is not an affiliate thing. There's a 60 mile. I wonder what 65. Boy, that's splitting hairs. 40 mile. Oh, okay. So they actually usually have more of these. I guess maybe on their website they have more. Leaf antennas. So that's got a wider thing, but it's it's only a 25-mile range. That's why. So yeah, you're going to want to read the description. You're going to want to, get an eye on it. I have seen ones that go farther than 60. I'm pretty sure I saw a 250 not too long ago. 65. Let's see what the antennas are. Ooh, deals and coupons. Those are always good. 75 miles. Yeah, so maybe not this brand, but others do. Now, since we're here, we'll just keep looking. So this is one that you can use indoor or outdoor, and this is a 200-mile range. But clearly, from the look of it, like most people, I'm guessing, are going to put this outside. But they say you can do it inside. That's pretty big. I don't know where you'd put that inside. I guess maybe up in your attic if you wanted to. But anyway, and this one too, well, it's $70 normally. It's on sale, and there's 8% off right now. So, hey, it's a deal. Now, this is by no means all of them, right? If you do just a search, like there's all styles, sizes. These are ones that are really sort of designed to be sitting like next to the TV. Back in the day before the thin TVs, you would have put it on top of it, but this would be like maybe on a table nearby. So you can find all different kind of combinations. What I would do personally is, if you're curious about this and you're not sure which format is going to work better for you. Oh, look at that one. That's cool. 360 degree. That might be fun. Sorry, I'm always looking for projects. If you're curious, ask your neighbors, right? Find out if somebody in your neighborhood, the odds are pretty good, is using this, or at least has tried it, and see what they used. Keep in mind, the technology, like everything else, is always improving. Now, I've had mine. Actually, I wonder if I can find. It's probably not worth the time. I'm trying to remember when I got mine, and it feels like it was a long time ago. I mean, it was in this house, so it was, within the past 20 years. But I want to say like 10 years ago, maybe. That feels like a safe number to say. And I'm already, like mine is working fine, but I am kind of curious about the newer one, so I may go ahead and treat myself. We'll see. We'll see how things go. See how the taxes I'm waiting to hear back from my accountant. We'll see how that goes. So you don't have to worry about don't fall for anybody saying, you need a digital antenna or an HD antenna. You just need an antenna that can handle broadcast TV signals. Your TV, on the other hand, does need to be able to handle HD, so that is where that becomes important. So just, be clear. And then, of course, we are talking about you either are going to get an amplified or not amplified, and that basically means amplified gets plugged in to get more of a boost, so the antenna can pull in a wider range of signal, or signal from a farther distance, I guess is the best way to put that. And you can do indoor, outdoor. So you are not restricted if you are living someplace where you can't install an outdoor antenna, or you just don't want to. That's totally fine. And at the end, I'm going to give you a couple of tips about positioning it, because that becomes very important too. All right. So we've got that. So I'm curious, Tyler and Paul, have you tried this yet? I'm guessing not, because Tyler's saying it's cool, so it sounds like you maybe haven't. I'm wondering, Paul, if you've tried this, because it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool, I gotta say. Okay, so I do want to, at this point, mention that if you have any questions, if you need help with something, if you have an idea for the show, please feel free to reach out. Go to yourtechcoach.net. There is a contact form there where you can let me know what your idea is or your question. If you have a question and you need a fast answer, I just ask you to remember to give me a way to get back in touch with you. Email address is probably the best, so that I can answer you quickly. Otherwise, all I can do is save it for a future show, which is fine. But if you need something fast, I will certainly try to help you as quickly as I can. So don't hesitate. You can feel free to reach out there. There's also some links to the shows. Like if you're looking for some recent old shows, this is a good place to get them, as is my YouTube channel. Let's see. So Paul says, you have an antenna on the house now. See, there you go. So when I moved into this house, there was one, but during one of the hurricanes, it kind of went. So I think when I switched from cable to satellite here, when the satellite person was installing the dish, he's like, your antenna's going to fall off any day. I'm like, yeah, I know. I just haven't had a chance to get somebody over here. And so he very kindly took care of it. Like, he brought it down for me and took it away. But now I'm kind of wishing I had my friend come over and repair it, because I could have used that. But, I'm a geek. I would have gone ahead and bought one of the internal ones anyway, inside ones, just because I wanted to play with it. So, so Paul, I hope you'll let us know if you do give this a try, because I would love to hear how that goes for you. All righty. let me just make sure I've hit my main points. And then if we have, then I can move on to some tips that are hopefully going to save you a little time. Okay. Okay, so some of the things that you're going to need to buy, just to recap for anybody who's joining late or skipped ahead because of chapters or a Google search, you may not need to buy anything. If you have an antenna on your roof and you can get to the cable and connect it to your TV, and your TV is already HD capable, you may be good to go. It's certainly worth a shot. If not, then you're going to probably need to go get an antenna of some sort. There are links in the description. You can get indoor antennas, outdoor antennas. You do want to look to see what the distance is, so that you're buying one that will work for you. You may also need to buy some extra cable depending on the distance between where your TV is and where your antenna is going to be. Just a few extra things. And then, like I said, if you have an old TV, that doesn't mean that you can't play the game. You can get a converter. What do they call them? Digital to analog TV converter. No longer free. There was a short period of time when I scored a free one, but not super expensive. So when you do this, whether you're hooking to your existing one, or you're getting an internal or a new outdoor antenna. Okay, so Paul says he may rewire his antenna and give it a try. I would love to hear that. Okay, so Paul, you can only leave if you answer this question right. Who are you rooting for? I need to know before we can let you leave class. Because if you answer wrong, you can't leave class. And there is only one right answer. Alrighty. And actually, the Yankee game was delayed, so I don't know. Did they say that it's going to start? Because it was delayed because of the storm. Just extra information. Not useful for the replay, folks. Okay, so let's say that you're going to get either an indoor or an outdoor antenna. The next big thing is where you're going to put it, right? The location and the positioning of it is going to have a big impact on what results you get. And the reality is, there are some websites out there that can help you figure that out, but you're going to end up moving it around 4 or 5 times at least before you find the right one. Yes. Well, no fair, John. You gave him the answer. Of course the Yankees is the right answer. Look at this. We're getting comments from Facebook on the same day. I'm shocked, especially since it didn't want to connect tonight. But yes, that is the right answer. If you want to be a fan here, you must be. No, you don't. Okay. So yes, the location is everything, right? Ideally, you want to, for indoor or outdoor, you want to go to the highest point that you can reach, right? Now, be reasonable about your own capabilities. Of course, you can hire somebody to help you out if you need the help. But you're going to want to pick a spot, try it, test, and then maybe repeat this process a few times. Once you think you've found a good spot, especially with the indoor antennas, like with the outdoor antennas, especially if you're going to hire somebody, you're pretty much going to get it there. You're going to want to do all the testing while they're there to make the moving, easier. And then, okay, wait. So Paul responded. Okay, so it looks like Paul, the emoji didn't come through. He sent us an emoji. But it looks like he might also be a person of taste and quality and a Yankee fan. And yes, those are all the same thing. So you're going to want to position it, test some positions, not only in the location, but also maybe the angles, to try to get the most channels out of your connection. With an indoor antenna, that's obviously a lot easier than if you're having to hire somebody to scamper around on a roof somewhere. And, you're going to want to move it around. I think, of course, I'm a crazy person, so, I did try more than I should have, just because I was like, well, maybe I can get a little bit more if I go this far. So, be reasonable about it, but, try a couple of different places. If you have somebody who can help you, you could have them hold it, and kind of, go someplace, but you're going to need to give it a couple of minutes in any location to really get a feel for what you're going to get out of it. And you're going to have to keep doing the rescan to really tell. So, maybe have them, position it someplace, but then maybe not hold it, because also the human body works as an antenna. So unless you're going to hire them to hold it forever, you're going to want to have them put it someplace, take their hands off of it, do the rescan, test to see how many channels you get, go look at a couple, and then move it again. So this is totally could be done by one person, is what I'm saying. But that's the big starting point, is getting the location, finding a good location. To be honest, you may, particularly again with the indoor ones, find a spot that's working really great, and then when the seasons change, it may not work so good. So there's two things around that. One is that you're going to want to rescan your channels every season. Now, the rescan is in your menu. So what you'll do on your TVs, you'll go into the menu, you'll look for something that says something about channels or broadcast or something like that. Go in, you're going to pick air because it's over the air that you're doing, right? It's no longer a satellite or a cable connection. And then you're going to run it. And what it's going to do is it's going to run a test, and it's going to go and collect as many good signals as it can find to make them available to you. Because, well, by the way, you do actually get a guide, like, just like with cable and satellite, which we didn't have back in the day. You had to have the TV guide, but you do get an on-air guide to go and pick your shows. So it will populate that for you. So that process does take a few minutes to work. But I find that once I got my antenna into a place where I got a fair amount of channels, if I just rescan every season. So basically what I do is I wait for the new season to start, and about 5 to 10 days after the new season starts, like as the Earth is positioning and all that good stuff, I run a rescan. Sometimes I do it twice in that period to get all the channels. There will be times that you rescan and you lose channels. Don't panic. Give it another day or so and then do it again. It could be that the main transmission antenna is being serviced. It could be that there's a storm between you and it that you didn't know about. There's a lot of different factors, so don't panic. If you lose a couple of channels, yeah, you may, miss a show. But if you rescan in a couple of days, you should get the rest of your shows back. Like I said, when I go into that site, put in my zip code and it tells me how many channels I'm going to get, it says about, depending on how I put it in, about 12 to 15. I get 50 to 60 channels. And the variance there is based on time of year. There are, like, going in, I think it's the spring and the fall, I get the 60, and the other two, I get 50 to 55. So there's that. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to get to you, this is the last big tip, and that is that most of the indoor antennas, many of the indoor antennas, recommend that you attach the antenna to a window to get the best signal. And many times that is the right call. Put it up, on the highest part of whatever window you can reach. That said, if you have a newer house, or if your house has newer windows, for example, if you have what they call low E glass, which basically is designed to reduce the amount of infrared, ultraviolet light, other electromagnetic radiation that comes through your glass, which in many, many ways is a wonderful thing, right? High-end kind of windows. However, because it's blocking all that stuff out, it's also going to block out the signal for the TV, right? So if you attach it to the window and you don't get a good signal, it might turn out that you have better windows than you thought, in which case you might want to just move it off of the window onto the wall a couple inches away from the window, and that will probably increase your connection. So that's something that wasn't a problem at first, and then as more of these started to roll out, it started to bubble out, and it took a little while for everybody to go, what the heck? And they're like, oh, the new fancy windows, that's the problem. So there you go. So I hope that you will give this a try. There's lots of options out there, and it's really not hard to get it set up. I mean, basically you're just, connecting it to the back. Whether you have an older TV or the brand newest one, the connector is there for you. So it's not like you have to necessarily attach something. Like I said, if you have an older TV, you might need this extra box, but other than that, you should be good to go. And it's worth a try because, hey, free TV. Oh, there's one other thing I forgot to tell you. Hang on. Okay, so those of you who know me in real life will understand why I'm excited about this, because I think I'm going to, again, depending on how the taxes come out, I may treat myself. You can get a DVR for over the air. Actually, it's been available for a while. It's just that, I hadn't really thought about it because I've been using services that it just wasn't worth it for. But now that I have over the air again, I can get a TiVo again. So now again, the TiVo comes at a cost, right? So it's $200. And then if you want to really use a TiVo, you've got to pay for the service. I think that number is on here someplace. Yeah, okay. So you can DVR. So with this particular version, you have to make sure you get the right version, right? So this version, it's the TiVo Edge for antenna. If you get that, you can record 2 shows at the same time. This is like the early days of VCR, right? 2 shows at the same time, but you're going to need a plan. So you're either going to pay $7 a month, $70 a year, or $250 for lifetime service. If you are the type of person who wants to sit down and watch a certain thing, but maybe, you can't catch Grey's Anatomy while it's running live, you can do this, and then you can get as many as you want and binge watch your little heart out for free, other than the cost of the antenna, the cost of the TiVo, and the cost of the service. So it still works out to be cheaper per month than your typical cable satellite kind of thing. But yeah, I was like, I hadn't really thought about it. And then as I was pulling my notes together for this show, a little bell went off in the back of my head, because back in the day I was a beta tester for TiVo, and I'm like, oh, I didn't get to be the beta tester for that because I didn't have an antenna at that point. So hey, I could go do this now. So it's just another option. Just wanted to make sure I got that out there. That's why I do notes, because otherwise I would have forgotten and I would have been bummed because I forgot to tell you something important. All right, everybody, I do hope you will let us know if you're watching this on a replay. I hope you'll jump in the comments and let us know if you've already done this or if you're going to try it. If you have a favorite antenna, by all means, do share, because everybody's going to have different needs. And so you never know, you might be able to help out a fellow Your Tech Coach team member. All right, everybody, thank you so much. I hope everything is going well. I am here every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I always bring a topic. You are always welcome to come and hang out, ask questions. You can also drop me a line if you ever need to. yourtechcoach.net. There's a contact form there. Don't be shy. I don't bite. It's okay. And I will see you next week. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.